welcome back to the Fanboy Cantina. We are live talking about Loki chat. And it's been a while since we've gotten together. But I'm hoping, Mr. C, this will be like riding a bike and we are back at it again. How are you doing?
I'm ready to put the bottom of my gym shoe into contact with the pedal. I'm ready to make that forward push and be back on the bike.
There you go. I was never good at bike riding. I kind of don't like it, but yes, we'll be fine back in the saddle again with. Oh, I can't get the overlay on top. Because I did it wrong. All right, so we will not have overlays for this episode because it's somewhere in the background. All right, never mind. So with this episode, we're talking about episodes 1 through 3 of Loki, and what we'll do here as part of this format, we will talk about overall impressions. Where do we think this thing is headed, and what are some of the unexplained mysteries that are hanging out there, roughly in that order. So with that, let me turn to you, Mr. C. What are your thoughts, overall impressions of the Loki series thus far?
Overall impressions, in its succession, the third of the Disney Plus Marvel televised adaptations, it continues to exercise in a good way just Disney's and Marvel's experimental use of the interplay between theatrical release and streaming service. So blah, blah, blah. What am I saying with all that? I like it. Here we go. We've had Wanda Scarlet Witch. It had its own tone and identity. Falcon and Winter Soldier was still very Marvel. Both of those two were very Marvel, but they were very much night and day also, really dissimilar as far as the type of heroics or type of heroic circumstances that were going on, and now we're again in a different kind of a venue. So the character of Loki is doing Loki does what Loki does. What he's always done. Trickery, mischief, and as far as who is he interacting with, it's a very interesting setup, well cast, and to have Owen Wilson right there with him. So those are two episodes were a really good progression from one into the other. The third episode changed things around a bit as far as with whom he was interacting. So it's got me curious as to what will be next. And you, good sir, what's your read on the overall impression of the show?
Yeah, no, I'm very much like you. I'm enjoying the film, the series. I think the casting is excellent. I did not know what to expect with Owen Wilson in the series, right? We know him from, was it Wedding Crashers or Zoolander or all these other films, but he's perfectly cast, it feels, in this role. So I'm very much enjoying the series. I think it has the highest production value of the Marvel series thus far. It's just up a notch compared to WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier. So I think that the game has been upped that much more here. It feels the most like the MCU for me. I think with Falcon and the Winter Soldier now having some distance from it and reflecting it, there were times where it felt like a TV series, or felt oddly small, particularly in the finale. There were some moments where, in the staging or how they approached it, where it felt a little bit oddly small. In this case, you feel like you are in the MCU, you are in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think it hasn't delivered some of the things that I had expected. I had expected more, time travel, actually. Maybe like Quantum Leap or Back to the Future. Although I guess Back to the Future was negated by Endgame, right, where they say that's not how it works. But I had expected a little bit more time travel, a little bit more of that. Did you like the appearance of the Bristol Renaissance Fair? in episode 2.
I thought it was definitely interesting and comedic, and the fact that it was located out of Wisconsin. I think they're trying to, over time and over their different series, hit a bunch of different smaller site locations, and something about the Renaissance Fair being a contemporary thing that invests in, reflects on, displays
Well, that's true.
the
Yeah.
ways of the past. So there's a piece of time acknowledgement or a time displacement that they're working with. And I suppose that as we traditionally see Thor or Loki as guardians, whether they're being written with their somewhat Shakespearean speak or not, there's something about connecting the. When I think of Renaissance fairs, I think of British and English influence or characterization, and so somehow maybe the Shakespeare is the intersection point between the Norwegian mythology and the historical British connection for the Ren Fair.
I just meant from the event itself. I used to love going to the Bristol Renaissance Fair, so it wasn't that deep. That's cool. That's cool. That's great. But I just meant as a reference to this place that I haven't been to in more than a decade at this point. But that was a summertime favorite for me, of going to the, driving up from Chicago to the Bristol Renaissance Fair. I assume it's invoking that in the series, so I liked seeing it there. I was thrown off a little bit in what was the significance of the Renaissance Fair? What was the significance of being in France in 1549 or whenever it is in time? And perhaps there's not much actually in it. It's not a moment of apocalypse like where the Sylvie is hiding, as described later. But I didn't quite understand some of these time travel beats. Two other thoughts. I really appreciated that here it is in June. It is Pride Month, and so we have a major character being revealed as a bisexual character, as an LGBTQ character. Representation matters, and it's done in I think a nice way, and it contextually fits right as Loki is having the conversation with Sylvie, exchanging their histories and how they're different from each other, actually, but nonetheless sharing that moment with each other. I hope to bits that there's not a love story between them, because that would be creepy and weird to have, because it's themselves, right? It's like your twin-ish. That would be weird. But anyways, with the representation point again, yeah, I thought that was well handled, and it's about time within the MCU.
It wasn't a coded representation. Yeah. It wasn't an over the top with spotlights and bells and whistles. It was just within the story, within the conversation and exposition. It was very naturally brought out as a piece of conversation, and I thought that was a very fitting, clever way to proceed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And looking at comments online in Twitter and elsewhere, people within the LGBTQ community feel like it was handled appropriately. So that's good to hear. Opportunity to do more, but nonetheless a good step. I was curious and would love your thoughts on this. So theme-wise, when we talked about WandaVision, it's Marvel exploring grief and trauma and processing. With Falcon and the Winter Soldier, it's an exploration of race in the MCU. And I thought that was really interesting. In this series, it doesn't necessarily have to have an agenda or a lesson or anything like that, but I was kind of looking for, what is the theme, what is the analogy with this show. And at the beginning, in episodes 1 and 2, it kind of had the fugitive or a crime show kind of dynamic. That's detective work. They're looking at the research and they're figuring, aha, not like Columbo or something, but like a detective type of format. But in episode 3, that's all out the window. It's a completely different show. So I don't know where this is necessarily going theme wise. Do you have an impression?
I agree. The themes were, at least as I processed the shows, the
Yeah.
themes were more clearly evident for the previous 2 installations.
Yeah.
So in kicking it around in my head and trying to put together what do I consider to be the theme, I'll look at the episode title off of episode 1 to be Glorious Purpose. And then, I suppose there's a few different interpretations of that, right? Loki would most traditionally claim himself, or claim for himself, well, my purpose is a glorious purpose. I'm choosing to walk my own path. Just tying together a few different snippets of his comments. But
Yeah.
is his intended purpose really, in fact, his glorious purpose, or is that supposed to be his character arc within these 6 episodes, that he finds a more glorious purpose of what might align with a more honest or true definition of glory, for him to be in service of someone or something or a cause. So that fits right into then. So there's also the double agent piece. Is he really going to? So he's literally backstabbed repeatedly throughout his both on the comics pages, when he's been expressed in cartoon, and now that he's expressed in live action film and streaming service. So he's clearly not to be trusted. But is he going to have a redemptive arc, or would it be temporary, or would it be more character permanent? These are all things we don't. These are all things we don't know yet.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I'm going to do a technical thing on the fly. We're going to see what happens here when I go to this shot. Hey, it's almost working, except not quite. But all right. So next, I will go. I'm going to rehearse myself next time. It's been a while. Complete sidebar. So part of the reason why it's been a while for folks that are watching, I broke my collarbone 4 or 5 weeks ago, and so that's why there's been a little bit less content on the channel in recent weeks. Trying to get back at it. I have a left arm that works mostly. I can't. Honestly, this is as far. We haven't spoken and done a FaceTime or anything in a while. This is as far as I can raise my left hand right now. So that ain't great. But I'm doing as much as I can with one hand here. Anyways, in terms of themes, I was thinking, if we wanted to read into it, possibly, if there's a lesson, and building on what you were saying about the purpose, there is that dimension of what does one think about for their own purpose in life? What drives them? What motivates them? And with Loki, from the beginning of the series, from the very first episode, everything that was driving him is thrown out the window. It's not about the global. It's not about conquest and great purpose, or the purpose that he thought. The stones don't matter now. They're all chucked into a box, and there's many of them.
Paperweights.
They're all paperweights. So all of that is thrown out the window. And the notion of this other structure that, there's this thing called the timekeepers and the sacred timeline. So all of your belief system is now thrown out the window there too. And what he thought was power is nothing compared to the timekeepers' power. So I wonder about. I think there is a piece about free will, your ability to choose your own destiny and choose your own paths. Or is somebody like the TVA going to intervene and pull you off the course? Is there predetermination already, that we are already destined that's predestination. But is there predestination then in that case? Are we already is our future already foretold? Right? Is there some design already planned? Those are deep and heavy themes, and maybe that's what they're trying to address. That would seem a little bit deep, though, for this series. I don't think it's maybe I don't think it's that deep, though.
I think by and large, I don't mean to speak for all of humanity here, but
Yeah.
I would suppose this would be relevant for a significant number of people, that if everything is predetermined, then that takes away from your self-agency or your ability to not just control, but your ability to interact in an environment or in a situation.
Mhm.
So if you have little to no control, or then that reduces your agency, then in other words, it can feed into, well, why bother to try? If I try or try not, the same outcome will result. So yeah, the whole reward system of I did something, I earned something, I achieved something, it subverts that, it turns it on its ear. So, and that's exactly the experience that Loki's having early on. He's trying to run down the hallway or escape, and they zap him back with the collar, repeatedly. They will continue to reinforce the lesson to him that he's
Right.
not in control over the situation. And whether they're doing an overcorrection to really show him that his video highlights of his past and his future in a Dickinsonian, in a Scrooge-like way. But then that was the idea for in showing Scrooge his past, his present, his future. The idea was to invoke change in him. So then that was not an example of predeterminism. That was an example of a redemptive arc and saving a soul.
Right.
Changing a human can change the course of their life through their actions. But then for Loki, that's not what they're trying to do with him. They're trying to break him down. Maybe they're breaking him down to build him back up, or maybe not. That we got episodes 4, 5, and 6 as yet to see which way it's going to go. But then it was challenging his view of himself, and then also it went in episode 3 when they said, well, what makes a Loki a Loki? It's all he's unraveling his view of himself, his definition of himself. It's all open season to unweave him and see where things go.
Yes. Other things that you would say of overall impressions before we get into speculations, where do we think this ultimately is going?
Just on the sets, the colors and the tone, just this whole oranges and browns and things look like they're very within the TVA. Things look like they're very late 60s, early 70s. I was curious, did they find some place which hadn't had an internal remodeling since it was put together that way, or how much of it was effects? But it struck me as very reminiscent of being in a bank or other public forums of the time, which in that time where those colors were more utilized, but it does have a real contrast to just even Loki's colors of the green and yellow, or the way Asgard was depicted. So the technology then also looks like it's very, by our standards as we sit here today, the shapes and the forms of the robots and the computers and the type and the paper reports, a lot of that seems not as current as things are in our current world. So it's a very interesting and well chosen way to go about the set design and setting the atmosphere.
Yeah, the set designs all around are fantastic. The rendition of this world and the TVA, you're right. The contrasts in different technologies and forms of community. The TVs or the computers are, monotone or not monotone. What is it? One color. It's just are just one color. orange. Everything seems like orange and brown. But then at the same time, when they're rendering other places like Lamentus in episode 3, that's a fully realized environment. Just
Yeah.
wonderful set design all the way around. Definitely. All right, so let's get to our next piece, which is speculations. And by the way, if you are watching this video live, or feel free to post in the chat, or if you are watching this later, post the comments down below, and we'd love to chat with you that way. So let's get into speculations here. So where do we think this ultimately is going?
Well, speculating again, knowing that Loki is the trickster, the god of mischief, the great deceiver.
Mm-hmm.
Either he's going to have a completely different identity manifest itself over these next 3 episodes, or he is going to pull some more double agent deception. And as was the case for WandaVision, the story was complete up to a certain point, but clearly it's, as is the advertising and information release has let us know, it will feed into the Doctor Strange movie. So similarly, my speculation here is, I don't know, is Tom Hiddleston cast into the Doctor Strange movie? That's unknown to me.
I don't know.
I would think it would be a good place to utilize him again. I will speculate that. But if Scrooge could change his ways, but can Loki change his ways? But does Loki want to change his ways? Mm-hmm. So Scrooge had significant motivation to change his ways, but has Loki been provided significant motivation? Does his knowledge that he directly contributed to his mother's murder, is that enough to get him to want to be a different kind of a character, or is it just too deeply at his core for him to give up being an agent of chaos? So I say all that to say, I'm going to speculate he's still going to have some element of chaos to him. He won't be complete in wrestling terms. He won't complete a full babyface turn where he goes from heel to hero. There's still going to be some questionable and mysterious and self-serving ways about him and in his manner. What's your top speculation?
Well, no, I'm gonna riff on that. If you think about one's arc as a development, as a person, it's informed by the different forks in the road, the choices that you have made, the people that you've met. To have seen the flash forward of that particular Loki's life, that would screw with your head, right? Especially knowing that everything that you have done has led to people directly killing, being involved in his mother's murder is one. The loss, the decimation of Asgard, and then dying ultimately in a perhaps noble but gruesome way at the hands of Thanos. So he could see where his arc would eventually lead, and how he changed to standing alongside his brother and Valkyrie in the battle at Ragnarok. But if you know that, but you didn't get to experience all that, then would you change? What would you change, right? Would you say, okay, that's who I can be, but if you're Loki from 10 years ago, right, at the Battle of New York City against the Chitauri, if you're coming from that point, you haven't had that evolution as a person. It's like not that much time has passed. So it would be a dramatic shift to now at the end of the series, okay, I'm going to be Thor's brother again, that kind of thing. So I'm very interested in, yeah, what will be Loki's turn at the end of this, or is there even a Loki at the end of this? Because he was supposed to be reset per the judge in episode 1. So I
So
assume
that may yet pan out. That may yet happen. I would just, if the reset was a quote unquote hard reset, and then you can't use Loki or Tom Hiddleston ever again, I don't know that they'd set the stage just that way.
right.
My other speculation then, since time is involved and time travel is involved, and since Kang the Conqueror has been announced as the major villain for the third Ant-Man movie, so this is now interesting that Ant-Man, who changes his size, and then through the quantum realm, now they're introducing the time travel element into Ant-Man. Kang had been in the comics and cartoons more traditionally an Avengers and sometimes Fantastic Four opponent. Ant-Man's kind of limited on his rogues gallery, so it makes sense to import and insert villains here. But now I have to wonder, is there going to be some kind of setup for Ant-Man 3? Will there be some kind of direct visual on-screen presence of Kang in maybe the 6th and final episode, or not, or will it just be hinted at? But the whole time travel, time agency, in some kind of a way, something's got to connect to the greatest time travel villain of all the Marvel universe.
Yep. This is the whole stuff that where you know the characters that much more than me. I know near zero about Kang as a character. Yeah, I'm aware that the time traveling villain aspect. I know that part, but beyond that, not much of substance. And I had seen a call out of the blue gum, the candy that shows up, and so I think it's blue. So perhaps a color palette esque thing about Kang. Seems like a little bit of a stretch, but who knows? Who knows? Going into the chat, we've got a comment of yo, and we should acknowledge and thanks for the couple of folks that have tuned in. We did have to move the time of this one because back in the Midwest, there's these threats of tornadoes. So I should have asked this of you in the beginning. Are you safe? Is your house going to blow away? Are you actually down there with a stack of Campbell soup cans?
In the reverse order, I have no Campbell soup cans in my immediate area, but they are upstairs and accessible.
Okay.
I believe that I am safe and good to go.
Yeah. So we were supposed to do this earlier in the day, but moved it obviously because of frickin' tornado warnings going on. And of course, the shout out. There's actually, I think, a handful of folks doing so. Nice shout out across within the chat. I'm looking at my notes to myself. I'm wondering where, in terms of where this ultimately goes. I'm wondering if there's going to be a tie to the Eternals at the end of the day here. I mean, we have these large, themes happening within this series, power over time, predestination, and things like that. And so knowing this universal force, the group of the Eternals that are watching over these things, over everything, how do the Timekeepers and the Eternals have a relationship? Is there any kind of tie? Might this actually tie into the Eternals more so than Doctor Strange 2? Don't know. I'm wondering about that.
Well, I'll say as much as we said Loki can be mysterious in his motives, the Eternals are on a whole other level of mystery. Mm-hmm. And I did just recently pick up the collected original volume of Jack Kirby's Eternals, and I gave it a first read through. Jack puts a lot. He's got a lot going on in there. It's really crowded with concepts and visuals both. So I definitely need to give another read or two or three to soak in what's going on in the Eternals book, to then give me a frame of reference of what might be coming up in the cinema release of the Eternals. Again, all that to say, boy, oh boy, I'm not at all sure which way the Eternals material might tie in yet. It's some interesting. It's totally interesting. It's just I'm not very fluent in it quite yet.
Yeah. No, I mean, MCU does so much in tying films together, tying the movies together. So, we've got Black Widow in front of us, like 2 or 3 weeks right now at this point. 2 weeks at this point. Then we've got Shang-Chi, and then we've got the Eternals, right? Or
sounds right to me. Yeah, Eternals is November. So
okay, and then Spider-Man is later. I don't know. I'm not sure where it is.
our lack of homework on the release date.
we need to do rehearsals before doing this thing, and then of course all this talk of soup makes me hungry. Yeah, soup. There it is. Soup. There it is. Yes. Yeah. I'm a big believer in the power of Campbell soup. I'm looking at my notes to myself. I think we've covered everything. Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. I'm curious if this does bring back Loki. Maybe it does not. Tom Hiddleston's been here from part of the MCU for a really long time, since Thor. So, could his number finally be up, or might he still continue with the series? I don't know. Anyways, all right. Should we talk about mysteries and things that we're wondering about?
Let's go.
All right. So mysteries at this point. One for me is, this is a quick one. How the heck are they going to get off Lamentus? We just saw episode 3. They don't have the doohickey thing, the time travel thing. They're not going to get on the Ark. Everything seems to be lost. Sylvie just walks off. That's it. I was kind of unsatisfied, actually, with the end of episode 3, because you kind of figure, well, crap, there's another 3 episodes. You're not going to end it now. That'd be a really dark way to call it. So that they're going to eventually get off this planet somehow, probably in the first 2 minutes of the show. But I don't know how they're going to get off Lamentus.
Speculating that someone from the TVA is going to find a way to locate them and extract them. But again, just as a side note, but since we don't change the pre-established course of if it's the Supreme timeline, then similar to the Pompeii in the background, okay, we're just going to accept it that all these people are just going to come to an end with their, either after the volcano goes or after the planet and the moon collide. So that's a little bit serious, and I don't want to think of it too seriously in our entertainment viewing. So there's some kind of cavalry from somewhere. Not Kang. I do not at all anticipate Kang to pop in for episode 4. Somebody TVA-wise, I expect to show up.
Yeah, I'm betting on the TVA as well as the intervener that will rescue them somehow. Perhaps it's Owen Wilson's brother. Who knows? How weird would that be? I assume they're somehow going to get off that rock. But something that you said though about the apocalypse, it was kind of sticking for me. Of everybody dies in Pompeii. Everybody at the Roxcart is going to die there. It's apocalypse. That's what happens. You think about the snap and what happened there. That all these people are going to die. It's frightening. It's frightening to think about these moments where mass annihilation being happening every episode. might be one of your mysteries?
They have some brief through the conversation at the booth on the train car. There's a brief conversation between Loki and Sylvie where they're exchanging information about their pasts or how they grew up or what was similar and what was different about them. So again, they're both trickster characters, so you never know how accurately or honestly are they speaking with each other. But I'm really curious about her backstory, like how, you know, what is the deal with her as a variant? Because I was starting to think, is this actually just an alternate Loki, or is this a completely separate character? And so just her whole origin story, backstory, motivation is mysterious to me. So I anticipate they'll fill in some more of those blanks, yet there'll still be plenty of unanswered questions for her and her background.
Yeah, at times I've wondered, are we sure that Sylvie is actually a Loki variant? Are we sure that the person that we saw in episode 1 at the end is the same person that we see in Sylvie? Could there be more than one villain running around? I kind of think that's not the case. I think they were all Sylvie. I'll buy into that that she is a actual Loki variant, but the differences in their story, and you know, I don't fully get it. You know, she didn't know her parents, right? Compared to, as opposed to the Loki that we know. But then at the same time, like when they run through the pictures of the different Loki variants, and there's like one that looks like a yellow Hulk or something like that. I don't understand how that works. How does that happen?
Right. And so were her parents also frost giants, or, you know, and how did she come to be or not come to be in Asgard then? You know, it's all interesting and curious.
Yeah. I am curious about the timekeepers themselves, whether they are truly a benevolent force, or is there something more sinister about them? Could it actually be that this is all a ruse, and that this is instead, and I'm gonna dredge up Mephisto, since we didn't get Mephisto in WandaVision, but you see the devil in episode 1. So could there be a demonic evil actually that's manipulating the timekeepers, or what we understand as the timekeepers? You know, it's sort of like wondering about it in our plane of existence right now. Is it actually that we're in Earth, or is it that we're in purgatory of some kind, or is this something else? We don't know. But anyways, with the timekeepers, yeah, I'm very interested. Is there gonna be a payoff, and if what we get, are they? You know, who are they?
If Mephisto rears his head, that would be one of the greatest boomerangs ever thrown, and we'll have to. Wow, I think that would generate very a great volume of internet commentary if Mephisto pops in. Again, are they really 3 space lizards as Loki coined them, or are they something different? Then I want to tie into Loki speaking to Mobius, saying, you know, I know something that you don't know. No one good is always or all the way good, or no one bad is all the way bad, or however it was specifically stated. So then that would imply, if we can utilize that quote towards speculating about the timekeepers, that they're not just benevolent and creating order from chaos. And Loki, as an example of a chaotic character, does well to point out, well, how can you completely eliminate chaos and have all order? And if we're going to make the comparisons of good versus bad and order versus chaos, right, there's interplay between all those elements. And so I don't think all that to connect to the dots. I can't see the time, those 3 time figures being purely benevolent and good characters.
Yeah, especially in the revelation that we got in episode 3, where and sorry, I've been. Oh man, yeah, right on. Yeah. So, in the revelation with episode 3, where the TVA is not spontaneously, in existence. They were not created by the timekeeper. They were taken. They had a human existence before, and their brains were wiped, and now they're in this. Now they're with the TVA. So they've been told a lie. The people within the TVA have been told a lie here. So it's kind of a supporting piece of evidence that maybe the timekeepers are not up to all good right there. And even with the film that Loki sees, that's an edited version of his life. So somebody got to choose what version of Loki was shown to himself, to him. So I don't think they're up to any good. And yes. Yeah. Yeah, Loki, get on my lawn. All right. Other mysteries that you got?
That's about all. Just the general mystery of what will come in each of the next episodes and how will it all tie together? How will it wrap itself up, yet also feed into the future releases? So I'm again staying tuned to see to see which way it all goes.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, other thing, the one little note that I got off to the side on my whiteboard, I'm still trying to get back into the rhythm of that. The temporal aura that appears in the first episode. Loki seems to make note of it. It seems like much of the MCU is deliberately crafted. So could that be a signal for something that may be important later on in the series? Don't know. Could be nothing. Could be just that, oh, look, you have a spectral soul within the Loki variant. But maybe it's something else. So I wonder about that. And I do wonder also at the end of the day, because I did feel like with WandaVision, there was a valuable story about how to process grief. I would say probably don't manipulate a whole entire city and brainwash them and torment them in their own personal hell. That's probably not the best way to process grief. But there were other elements of that, what is love, what is grief, but love persevering. Those kinds of things will stick. And then again, as we already talked about with Falcon and Winter Soldier, there's a lesson about race within that series. And this one, it does not necessarily need to be held to that standard, but I wonder if there's something about choosing one's own destiny and free will, as we already spoke about. I wonder if that's something that we may take away at the end of the day here. So I couldn't tell you, and it's actually flickered on and off. So I think people have been popping in and out, and I'm not quite sure. But hi, whoever else is out there. All right. Any last thoughts?
Looking forward to next week's release. And again, getting used to the Wednesday drop versus the Friday drop. That's a thing in there. But that's 3 more episodes to go. And then we'll be back to either a full-length streaming motion picture or back in the physical movie house. So there's good things on the horizon.
Yeah. Yep. No, I am enjoying the series. Looking forward to the next 3. Yes, since you brought it up, the Wednesday drop is kind of throwing me off a bit, but I like it. I guess I have not watched. I haven't watched the latest Bad Batch. Have you been following that series?
Yes, we just saw the latest one yesterday.
Okay, I'm enjoying that one. I'm enjoying that series. I like it quite a bit, but the later, I like it also later in the week as opposed to middle of the week. But anyways, all right. Well, thank you so much for watching. And if you could do us a favor and hit the like, hit the subscribe if you have not already subbed to us. As always, thanks so much. Thanks for watching. This has been the Fanboy Cantina. Take care.